In this next video, we're going to talk about coterminal angles and a little bit about which quadrant is defined by which angle. So two angles with the same initial side and the same terminal side are called coterminal. We saw in the previous video that coterminal angles start with the same initial side and then they end at the same spot. So two angles that are coterminal that have one positive and one negative look like this. So in this case, my alpha angle would be the positive because it rotates counterclockwise. Another example of coterminal angles could be when both the angles are positive. So that's what this looks like here. So our first angle just goes up a little bit. This is our alpha. The next angle goes all the way around the circle and then back to that angle. In degrees, if alpha is the degree measure, then alpha plus 360 times n, where n is an integer, is coterminal. So this fancy math language right here just means n is an integer. And an integer is a number like 1, 2, 3, -5, and so on. So in order to get to the same spot on the circle, you either add or subtract 360 degrees. In radians, you do the same thing, but instead of adding or subtracting 360, you add or subtract 2 pi, because there's 2 pi radians in one revolution of the circle. The next thing I'm going to show you is comparing the quadrants using degrees and radians. So using degrees, we see that when you're in the first quadrant, you're between 0 and 90 degrees. The second quadrant is 90 to 180, and so on. In radians, the first quadrant is between 0 and pi over 2. The next quadrant is from pi over 2 to pi, and so on. This is really good to have memorized, as pi over 2 is 90 degrees, and this is 270 degrees, and so on. This will help you visualize which angle is in which quadrant. Example 2. Identify one positive and one negative angle that is coterminal with the given angle. Then sketch the angles. So, for A, we're at 45 degrees. So if you want to be coterminal, you either add or subtract 360 to be on the same spot. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and draw it first. So 45 degrees is about here. And if I subtract 360, that means I'm going clockwise 360. And if I add 360, I'm going to go the 45 plus a whole nother 360, which puts me here. So my goal is to now figure out what is the value of those angles. So in order to find the green one, you do 45 minus 360, and you get negative 315 degrees. And to find the pinkish one, you do 45 plus 360, and you get 405 degrees. All right, now let's do B. And B gives us negative pi over 3. So negative pi over 3, it means we're going to go down pi over 3, so that's about right here. Pi over 3 is about here. This is pi over 3 if you looked on your unit circle. So negative pi over 3 is just in the opposite direction. So our goal is to then find this angle as well as that angle. So all we have to do is add and subtract 2 pi. So you get negative pi over 3 plus 2 pi. And you're going to need common denominators for this. And we're going to get 5 pi over 3. And then to find the other one, we're going to subtract. And that's all there is to it. So now on your own, I want you to try these two angles and find the two coterminal angles and then sketch them. All right, let's give it a go. So we have negative 30. So if I want to find the two coterminal angles, I just add and subtract 360. So negative 30 plus 360, negative 30 minus 360, and I get 330 degrees and negative 390 degrees. And then for part B, we get 3 pi over 4. So you do the same thing, but now instead of using 360, we're going to add 2 pi and subtract 2 pi. And that's it. You're all done.